Welcome to the deep dive. Ever feel like the financial world operates on, I don't know, another planet sometimes?
It definitely can seem that way.
Today, we're going to pull back the curtain a bit. We're diving into the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC.
Right.
We've been looking at their own FinCrime intelligence platform to really get a handle on what they do, their responsibilities, and crucially, how they fight financial crime.
Yeah, think of this as trying to understand them from the inside, using their own info as our map.
So our goal here is for you to get a clear picture of this, well, this vital regulator, and maybe feel a bit more context when you hear about finance stuff.
Exactly. We want to go beyond just the headlines. Look at their history, their main jobs, and yeah, how they're really on the front lines against financial wrongdoing.
Okay, so the SEC sounds big, official. Where did it actually come from? What's the origin story?
Well, it's actually quite fascinating. Its roots are directly tied to a huge crisis. You have to picture the chaos after the 1929 stock market crash.
Right, the Great Depression followed that.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So the SEC was established in 1934 really as a direct response. There was this clear feeling that we desperately needed a strong central body to bring some order and oversight.
So basically born from disaster to try and prevent another one.
That's the core idea.
And what was the mission statement back then? It is still the same today.
Pretty much, yeah. The information from their platform confirms the original mission is still central. It was threefold, really. First, protect investors. That's key.
Okay.
Second, maintain fair, orderly, and efficient markets. Kind of level the playing field.
Right.
And third, help companies raise capital, facilitate that process so they can grow and create jobs. Those pillars are still what drives them.
That makes a lot of sense. So protecting people, keeping things fair, helping business. How do they actually do that day to day? What are the big tasks?
Okay, so they have several core functions. One you probably hear about is overseeing public companies.
The ones listed on stock exchanges.
Exactly. These companies have to file regular reports, the annual 10K, quarterly 10Q, and then 8Ks for major unexpected events.
So it's like their report card for investors.
That's a good way to put it. It's all about transparency, letting investors see the company's financial health and what's going on. It's vital for making informed decisions.
Right. I know serious investors definitely dig into those filings. What else falls under their remit?
Well, a huge part is enforcement. They have a whole division of enforcement dedicated to investigating and prosecuting violations of securities laws.
Okay, so the police of the financial markets.
In a way, yeah. They go after things like securities fraud, lying to investors, insider trading that's trading on secret information.
The cheat code, basically.
Right. And also accounting fraud, like when companies cook the books to look better than they are.
Got it. So they're looking for deception and unfair advantages.
Yeah.
What else?
They also regulate the actual players in the market. So not just the companies issuing stock, but the intermediaries. Brokers, dealers, the big investment firms, clearing agencies that handle the transaction settlements, even the credit rating agencies.
Wow. Okay, so the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, they register and monitor them to make sure they're operating responsibly and ethically, too.
Okay, that paints a broader picture.
Yep.
Now, what about all the new stuff? Finance is always innovating, right? ETFs, SPACs, derivatives. Who greenlights those?
That's a really important function, especially now. The SEC acts as a kind of gatekeeper for new financial products.
How so?
Before things like ETFs or those complex derivatives or SPACs you mentioned can be sold to the public, the SEC reviews and has to authorize them.
Ah, so they check them out first.
They do. The idea is to ensure there's some level of scrutiny and understanding before potentially complicated or risky products flood the market.
Okay, rulemaker, cop, and gatekeeper. Let's focus a bit more on that cop role, the fight against financial crime. What are the main fronts there?
Well, as we said, insider trading is a big one. They use some pretty sophisticated analysis looking at trading data.
Trying to connect the dots.
Exactly. Trying to find patterns that suggest someone traded based on non-public, material information. Who knew what, when, and did they profit illegally?
Sounds like detective work in a sea of numbers. What other kinds of manipulation do they target?
Market manipulation is another major focus. These are schemes designed to artificially mess with stock prices.
Like how?
Well, the classic is the pump and dump. Fraudsters hype up a stock with false information to drive the price up the pump.
Right.
Then they sell their shares at the peak, the dump, leaving everyone else holding the bag when the price crashes.
Nasty stuff.
Yeah. And then there's spoofing, where traders place big fake orders they never intend to fill just to create a false sense of supply or demand and trick the market.
That really undermines the whole idea of a fair market.
Absolutely. And related to that is going after fraudulent disclosures.
You mean companies outright lying in those reports we talked about?
Yep. Yes. Targeting misleading or just plain false financial statements. Investors rely heavily on that information, so if it's garbage, it can cause serious damage and erode trust completely.
It's good to know someone's looking out for that. Now, you mentioned they don't do this alone. They work with other agencies.
Oh, definitely. Collaboration is essential. Domestically, they work very closely with the Department of Justice, DOJ.
For the criminal charges.
Exactly. The SEC often handles the civil side, fines, penalties, while the DOJ brings criminal cases. They also partner with FINRA.
That's the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority.
Right. They oversee the brokerage firms directly. And also FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, which focuses on things like money laundering.
So it's a network of agencies trying to cover all the bases.
It really is. It allows for a much more comprehensive approach.
Okay, so for the companies and people the SEC does regulate, what are the expectations? What does compliance involve?
Well, the requirements are pretty stringent, as you'd expect. They have to implement strong internal controls to prevent fraud in the first place.
Makes sense.
They need to keep accurate books and records, file those disclosures accurately and on time, establish clear ethics policies, and crucially, they need to have protections for whistleblowers.
Ah, whistleblowers. That sounds important for uncovering hidden problems. Does the SEC encourage that?
They actively encourage it. They have a formal whistleblower program.
How does that work?
If someone provides original, credible information about a securities law violation and it leads to a successful enforcement action with over $1 million in sanctions,
Yeah.
the whistleblower can get a pretty substantial financial reward, often between 10% and 30% of the money collected.
That's a serious incentive.
It is, and it's proven very effective in bringing misconduct to light that might otherwise stay buried.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, finance is global. Crime doesn't stop at the border. How does the SEC handle that?
That's a key point. Their direct enforcement authority is, within the U.S.,
Yeah.
but financial crime is definitely international. So they collaborate extensively. They're part of international groups like IOSCO, that's the International Organization of Securities Commissions.
Sort of a global club of regulators.
Kind of, yeah. It brings regulators from all over the world together. Plus, they have direct agreements with many foreign regulators to share information and cooperate on investigations.
So things like,
Multinational stock offerings, or cases involving foreign corruption that affects U.S. markets, or cybercrime that originates overseas but targets U.S. investors or systems.
so even without direct power abroad, they're plugged into a global network.
They have to be.
Speaking of modern challenges, the FinCrime intelligence material really emphasized technology. What's the SEC focused on there?
Oh, this is huge and evolving fast. Cybersecurity is a major concern.
Understandably.
Yeah, a big cyber incident could seriously destabilize markets or shatter investor confidence. They're monitoring those risks closely. Then there's the whole world of crypto and digital assets.
Right, Bitcoin, NFTs, all that.
Yeah,
Is it a security, is it not?
exactly. The SEC is working hard to clarify the rules around tokens, exchanges, ICOs, DeFi. It's complex territory, trying to apply existing laws to new tech.
I bet.
And also things like AI and algorithmic trading. With so much trading being automated and happening at high speeds.
High-frequency trading.
Right. They're looking at the potential systemic risks. Could these complex systems somehow spiral out of control and cause market instability?
So they're constantly playing catch-up or trying to stay ahead of the curve with technology.
That's a good way to put it. They have to adapt continuously to keep fulfilling their mission in this changing landscape. These tech threats really expand what the SEC needs to cover to safeguard the whole system.
This has been incredibly insightful, but let's bring it back to the listener. For you listening, why does understanding the SEC actually matter?
Well, it really comes down to trust. The SEC's work is fundamentally about maintaining the integrity of financial markets. So whether you have a 401k or other investments or even just money in a savings account that's part of the broader economy, the stability and fairness that the SEC strives for directly impacts your financial well-being.
It's the foundation you rely on, even if you don't think about it daily.
Exactly. It affects the security of your investment and the health of the economy you participate in.
Okay, so let's recap quickly. The SEC came out of the Great Depression to protect investors and ensure fair markets.
Right.
They do this by overseeing public companies' reporting, enforcing laws against fraud, like insider trading and market manipulation, regulating brokers and firms, checking new products, requiring strong compliance from companies and even rewarding whistleblowers.
You got it. And they work with other agencies, both here and internationally.
And now they're heavily focused on adapting to huge technological shifts, cybersecurity, crypto, AI trading.
That's the challenge today. They have to tackle both the old school fraud and these brand new complex digital threats. It's a constantly evolving job.
So a final thought for you listening. Maybe just take a moment to consider how the SEC's work, often behind the scenes, contributes to the stability and trust in the financial systems you use.
And think about how their efforts to grapple with new tech today might really shape how investing and finance look in the future.
If you want to dig deeper, the SEC's own FinCrime intelligence platform has a wealth of information.
Definitely worth exploring.
Thanks for tuning in to this deep dive.